Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to talk about how Kyle Brink, the executive producer of Dungeons and Dragons, defeated the haters in February of 2023. All right, so let's define the haters, right? So I think there's a new group, the D&D hater group, right? And I would define them as the following three people. And they are self-defined as an alliance, okay? And it's brand new, and boy, things are changing, right? And so let's talk about the group, and I'll explain why I feel they are a D&D hater group. All right, so the group is the three most powerful D&D commentators in the world, right? And that is Ginny D, Nerd Immersion, and Bob World Builder. Okay, now you're like, wait, what, Scott? You think the most powerful D&D commentators in the world are Ginny D, Nerd Immersion, and Bob World Builder? Yes, without a doubt, right? Like, so one of the reasons why is each one of them have identified as being a D&D commentator, right? And they identified their brand specifically with D&D before January of 2023, when the 2023 Manic Panic broke out, which other people call the OGL controversy, right? So I think, and this is important, like, right? Because, like, well, you know, aren't there other D&D commentators? But then it gets very interesting, right? So, like, first of all, Dungeon Dudes, do they matter? They don't matter. And the reason why is all they talk about is subclasses, and who cares, right? Like, they don't really talk about Dungeons and Dragons as a brand, or as an element of Americana, or as a life brand, or as an element of Americana. They're like, oh, if you twiddle this bit on this class, this happens and you can do more damage. Stupid, useless, they don't matter. Okay, Dungeon Dudes are out, right? Let's talk about Professor Dungeon Master. Too much aligned with the OSR. Very much, just too much aligned with the OSR. Seth Skorkowski, same thing, right? Where's your alliance? Are you with? And that's the other thing is, are you D&D now, or are you D&D then? Professor Dungeon Master, D&D then. Old, crusty, doesn't matter, right? Seth Skorkowski, same thing, right? Too much time and attention on Call of Cthulhu and Traveler, right? Could be a major voice in D&D commentating, is not, right? Because he splits his attention too much, right? But let's get the numbers. So one, Bob World Builder, I'm almost positive he's over 100K. Nerd Immersion is over 100K. And Ginny D's over 400K subs, right? And these people matter because they talk about D&D now. Not D&D then, not OSR, not I love a whole bunch of other games, right? And this is all before, right? And so when all this broke out, right? So the 2023 Manic Panic explodes in January of 2023, right? The OGLers, the OSR, and the Orc take their shot, right? And basically the balloon inflates, and Hasbro pops the balloon by get this, you're only going to hear this here. In my humble opinion, the OGL 1.0 is dead. Nobody will ever use it again. And this is the sleight of hand that Hasbro actually accomplished. You know, everybody was like, the OGL, the OSR, and the Orcs were like, we won! You didn't win nothing. The OGL is 100% dead. Long live Creative Commons, right? And all that happened was the SRD got put on Creative Commons, and you'd have to be an outrageous fool to ever use the OGL 1.0 again. And so Hasbro did this sleight of hand. Y'all don't know it. The OGL 1.0, that's a chicken with its head cut off. Ain't nobody ever going to use it again, right? And here's why. If you use the OGL 1.0, you're under every threat you were under during the 2023 Manic Panic, right? And you got to put an entire page of text into your product. You switch to just using the Creative Commons STR, you're down to 3 sentences that go into your product, and you have way more protection and way more safety. So believe it or not, the OGL 1.0 champions don't even know it, but what they were fighting to save is literally dead. It doesn't even No one would ever use the OGL 1.0 again, okay? All right, let's keep going here. All right, so Nerd Immersion explained this. Ginny D, Nerd Immersion, and Bob Worldbuilder got on a call together, and they said, we're all being reached out to by Hasbro, and they want us to bring on Kyle Brink, the executive producer for Dungeons and Dragons, and interview him, right? And so they all said, hey, we're all going to interview him, but let's cut it up so that we don't duplicate each other's questions, right? And that's an alliance, right? In my humble opinion, that is the core D&D hater group right there. Now, why do I say they hate D&D? Here's why. Okay, so first of all, what they specifically hate is they hate that they're trapped by D&D. All of them want to escape. All of them want to go to Pathfinder. All of them want to go to OSC. All of them want to go to DCC. All of them want to go anywhere but D&D, but they can't. They're trapped. And the reality and the reason why is you could put every single game in the industry up against Dungeons & Dragons, and Dungeons & Dragons will defeat it. And they know, they're all like, if they tried. They literally, every single one of them tried. Right? There, when I talk about OSE, when I talk about DCC, when I talk about Pathfinder, you could just take a knife and cut anywhere from 90 to like 75% of my views off. So they're trapped, and they hate that they're trapped. I'm Scott Garibay. I don't give two figs that they hate that they're trapped. I say they hate D&D, right? That's the symptom. The reality is they're D&D haters. They hate it because they're trapped by it, and then boy are they trapped by it, right? They can't go. Everybody wants to just pull the history off of Dungeons & Dragons and say 50 years of labor and 50 years of Americana and 50 years of awesome don't matter. Guess what? It matters. Guess what? It matters. Guess what? It matters. And you can't get away from it. And you are trapped. You are bound. You are bound. And you ain't going nowhere, right? And guess what? I read it. I downloaded Project Black Flag. Good Lord. Did you see that crap? All they did was take the SRD and pour it in a different cup. It is the laziest. I talk about copy energy. You could have just put copy energy as every single word. It was the worst. There's literally not one. You can't even smell innovation on it, right? It is the worst copy energy nonsense you could ever imagine. There's literally nothing new in it, right? Like, and people are like, oh, is it going to be better than D&D? What do you think? You think a copier is going to beat the innovator? Are you out of your mind? Right? Like, are you paying attention? Did you see that crap? It was like they plopped it out, like it was brown and steaming. It was a piece of crap, right? Like, I couldn't believe. They should be ashamed of it. They should literally be ashamed of it. Like, I would. Like, I can't believe anybody put their name to that steaming turd. It's unbelievable, right? Holy cows! All right, let's keep moving here. All right, so Nerd Immersion and Bob Worldbuilder and Ginny D, they all get together. You're talking over 500,000 subs there, right? Okay. And the reality, and get this, I was going to say Ginny D is the most significant D&D commentator, female D&D commentator. Nope, she is the most significant commentator in the world on D&D. Period, because she outnumbers both Bob Worldbuilders and Nerd Immersion subs, right? And the reality is, and here we are, who would have thought that Bob Worldbuilder, Nerd Immersion, and Ginny D would be at the top of the pile? Ginny D belongs there. She's been doing this a long time. She has outperformed both of the two males behind her. And who would have thought this too? The number one D&D commentator in the world is female, right? And not by a small margin, but by a large margin, right? And it is interesting, right? She could have been beaten, right? I think there's a lot of commentators that could have beat her, right? But they all made themselves irrelevant by talking too much dial turning on the rules and on being too much D&D then, right? And that's really fascinating, right? So you got this D&D hater group, right? Ginny, Nerd Immersion, Ginny D, Nerd Immersion, Bob Worldbuilder. They all despise Dungeons & Dragons because they cannot escape it. They're all the Mastodon chumps, right? Man, everybody waltzing over to Mastodon like they're going to replace Twitter, running back when there's anything real that happens, because Mastodon is a hollow, aching tomb, right? And that's the issue, right? So these D&D haters, they bring on Kyle Brink. He wrecks all of them, wrecks them, right? And the reason why is all of this nonsense came out because people were like, we can't trust Hasbro, right? They mean us ill, right? And they mean to do us dirty, right? But the reality is, there was this problem, right? The problem happened, right? And people are saying, oh, I can't trust Hasbro. Hasbro just trots out Kyle Brink as their champion, right? And this is just like Daenerys, right? She just trots out her champion, and her champion wrecks. Dungeons & Dragons is in trouble. They trot out a champion, right? 4th edition cocked everything 6 ways to Sunday. They trotted out the Mike Merles. Mike Merles slew the dragon, right? Now the dragon is a 3-headed dragon of Ginny D, Nerd Immersion, and Bob Worldbuilder, right? They trot out Kyle Brink, and you know what he does? He's like, bring it. I don't care what your questions are. Let's get it done. Roll it, right? He comes on, he answers every question, no limitations, give full ability to answer it. And you know what he says? He says, hey, all y'all fools forgot. Right? I'm paraphrasing, right? We're a corporation. You got upset because you don't like capitalism and you forgot Hasbro's a corporation. So we corped it up. Corporation corpse, right? And here's the reality. We're Dungeons & Dragons. We love Dungeons, and the creators of Dungeons & Dragons love Dungeons & Dragons. We're creating Dungeons & Dragons. And you know what all that's really happening here is a corporation corped, right? We're a corporation. We have a legal document. We tried to change it. You guys got upset. Here we are. We're ready. We're ready to talk. We're capable of doing this. I got a head on my shoulders. I knew every question you were going to answer before you asked it, and I have a reasonable answer. There's nothing being hidden here. And all that really happened, right, was a corporation did corporation actions. And you, as the D&D community, became overwrought and essentially overreacted, right? But the reality is, nothing's being hidden. I'm answering every question, and I'm doing it across every major platform. And guess what? You suckers are going to ask the questions, and we're going to talk because you got nowhere to go. And that's the whole of it. Kyle Brink is like, calm down, sit down back at the Dungeons & Dragons table, because the dusty, crusty crap you are pulling out of the closet doesn't matter. This is the real deal, right? And that's where it landed, right? It lands with Kyle Brink just slaying this 3-headed D&D hater dragon, right? And really calming everybody down, and the balloon is popped, right? And the reason why is Dungeons & Dragons has always been safe. It's with its best guardian ever, and they are professionals, and they are a real corporation, and everything they're doing actually is being done very level-headedly and with everyone's best interest at heart, right? And everything they tried to do was completely reasonable. The only real problem was that the D&D community overreacted. That's the only real problem, right? And the reality is, Kyle Brink rolling up on Ginny D, Nerd Immersion, and Bob Worldbuilder, easily answering every single question they have, makes all of them look like overreacting fools, and also shows the world we are going to crawl back and sit down and play the only tabletop role-playing experience that matters, Dungeons & Dragons. And the reason why is the entire rest of the industry can't even get half their numbers, right? And so at the end of the day, Dungeons & Dragons is all that matters. And Kyle Brink walks out as Hasbro's champion and absolutely slays Ginny D, Nerd Immersion, and Bob Worldbuilder. They look like overreacting fools, and Hasbro looks reasonable. right? And the reality is Kyle Brink handled all of them. He handled them flawlessly. And the reason why is they're all rank amateurs, right? Actually, Ginny D is an actual real professional, right? But in this case, she looked like a rank amateur, right? And I could say that very easily. And the reason why is her first video back after all of this was her saying, I have GM burnout, right? Like she's been doing this for like 5-8 years and still doesn't know how to run a campaign without burning out, right? She just looks like a rank amateur, right? And frankly, Bob World Builder and Nerd Immersion are literally rank amateurs, right? Like they don't do this professionally. Ginny D is a professional who looks like a rank amateur. And the reality is Kyle Brink is an actual professional, right? And that's the issue, right? We got hobby energy in an actual, going against an actual industry professional, right? And Hasbro brought up their champion and he slayed the three-headed D&D hater group, the dragon, right? Every word of that is my humble opinion. What's important is when I get to hear your humble opinion. When you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.